magical things about video games is how they can just craft these stories that absolutely strike you to your very core. And as a pretty emotional person a lot of the time, I have a whole slew of video games that have made me cry over the years. Some make sense, some not so much, but those are the games we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to explain why these very specific games made me cry. Hi everyone, my name's Alex, aka Quality, and welcome back to the channel. Now, big warning right now, there are probably going to be spoilers in this video, and by probably, I mean there definitely will be. So do that at your own risk. I'm going to timestamp this video so that way you know what games are featured in this video, so if there's any specific game that you do not want to see spoiled for you, you can skip. Alright? But a lot of the moments between the 5 games I've picked have been very integral parts of the story, as well are very close to the ending of a lot of these games. So if you don't want to be spoiled, either one, go play those games right now and come back and watch this video later, or skip through the ones that you don't want to be spoiled for. But this is your warning now, so if you don't heed it, it's your own fault. Now we're going to start with a pretty obvious one for me, where if you know me, you know this is one of my favorite games on the Switch, one of my favorite games of all time, Fire Emblem Three Houses. So I think this game hits people in different ways all the time. Depending on what route you started with in the game, I feel like you're going to be way more drastically connected to those characters via some of the characters in the other routes, or however you played it, it really affects your emotional response to a lot of the events in this game. So I cried a few times in this game, like quite a few times. One of the most notable parts of this game that I cried for being the end of the Blue Lions route in the fight against Edelgard. Now, I'm not one of those people that is very much so like one house leader over the other. While Dimitri is my personal preference, I still find a lot of narrative value between all 3 of the house leaders, especially Edelgard. People really hate her, and I get it, but she's such a complex character that she's really, really interesting to kind of experience throughout the different routes, her motivations, what she does, and what leads her to the different decisions she makes in different routes. In the Blue Lions route, she becomes, and I can't remember the official name of this character, this like zombified version of herself that has all of these crazy powers. She kind of let those who slither in the dark kind of influence her in this way, so she has all of these evil powers and she takes you on by herself, which is pretty crazy. There's a bunch of other events that lead up to that point, but again, that's better played for the story. So at the very end of the battle between the Blue Lions and Edelgard, you have this huge scene between Dimitri and Edelgard. For one moment, for Dimitri, it's kind of this full circle moment where he finally has the opportunity to kill somebody who he has felt so betrayed by this entire time, and somebody he trusted because they were childhood friends and childhood romantic interests, I guess. So now he's finally faced with the decision to kill her, something he's longed for a long time. But because of the transformation that Dimitri himself has gone through, he hesitates. He's not sure if he's gonna do it and decides to offer her mercy. However, Edelgard in this moment knows that no matter what, they will never see eye to eye, and strikes him, so he has to end her life, which is so powerful. I found it a really, really, really powerful moment. 100%. And because I liked Edelgard, and at that point in time, I still didn't know much about her motivations, it really did drive me to tears. One, because it felt like Dimitri was finally kind of getting somewhere, and then still ended up being betrayed by his childhood friend. Betrayed. I guess I'm going to use that word lightly, betrayed. But regardless, Edelgard was a classmate. She was a character we got to know relatively decently throughout the story, even with picking the Blue Lions route. So I really felt for her. And then later on, one of the bigger moments that I cried is in the Crimson Flower route, Edelgard's route, when we have to kill Dimitri and the Blue Lions. Obviously, things are different when you pick the Edelgard route. You are now facing members from other houses that you haven't recruited, and it really is an all or nothing kind of situation. Whereas I felt in Blue Lions, and especially the Golden Deer, there was a lot more room for mercy and compassion. In Crimson Flower with Edelgard, there wasn't. There were definitely big moments, looking at you, Sedith and Flame, but otherwise it was like, a lot of it felt all or nothing. And maybe that's my own interpretation of the events, but I think that's what leans into my personal emotional response to it, is during that battle, I felt like I was just it was breaking my heart. It was absolutely breaking my heart having to kill Dimitri and all of these other characters that I spent so much time with, their social events and all of these things, because when I did the individual house routes, I tried not to recruit too many other people from houses unless it was like somebody I couldn't live without, like Dorothea. I love her, so I could not let her come to my side. But still, it was very emotional. So the entire battle, I was definitely sobbing because I was like, I don't want to kill my friends anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Because at that point in time, I had played the game so many times that it just was like this endless loop of killing people I cared about. And then I felt like for Edelgard's route, that was like the final straw where I really, really felt it. I was like, I can't do this. It hurts too bad. And so I just remember bawling during that battle and bawling all the way throughout the end of her route, because her route was the last route that I did. So it definitely felt exceedingly impactful, because at that point in time, this was before the DLC came out, obviously, I was like, I'm done with 3 houses. I did everything I needed to do. I've played everything. So the emotional release of just all of this pain and suffering that I've experienced these characters that I loved go through 4 different times in different ways. It was a lot. It was very emotional. And one of the many reasons that Fire Emblem 3 Houses is one of my favorite games of all time, because of the emotional torture that I went through on every single playthrough. This next game is an oldie but a goodie, and it's honestly a game I haven't thought about, but one of the inspirations behind making this video, To the Moon. So To the Moon was a game that I played pretty soon after it first came out back in 2011 on my computer. It was actually the very first game I ever bought on Steam. Pretty crazy accomplishment. And in this game you are playing as 2 scientist-like people, Eva and Neil, and they work for the Sigmund Corporation. What that is, it's a corporation to help people achieve their final wishes before they depart this world. And it's a very interesting concept. This is a multi-game series, and I have not played the other games in the series yet. They're still on my Steam wishlist, so some point in time when they go on sale, I will snatch them all up, replay the first one, and revisit that world, because it's very, very interesting. And I think there's more to it than what the first game presents. Don't spoil it for me. I know this video is full of spoilers, but don't spoil this series for me, because I really want to play the rest of it. So in To the Moon, you are helping this guy named Johnny who has the dream to go to the moon, but he doesn't really know why. As you dive through his memories and piece together everything, you find out that a lot of it has to do with his wife, who passed away several years before. Now, again, without getting into the heartbreaking detail of their relationship, because there's a lot, it was a life full of heartbreak. You ultimately find out the reason that Johnny wants to go to the moon is because of a memory that he has long since forgotten about the first time him and his future wife met. Unfortunately, Johnny got into a really crazy accident that left him totally memoryless of that experience. But deep down in his core, he knew that it was part of the promise he made as a child to his future wife, which I cannot remember her name right now, which is really sad. And even though he forgot that memory, they found each other later in life and then had this whole life together, and that is why that's why his final wish is to go to the moon, is because of his late wife. And when you find that out, that is also when Johnny starts to die. So what happens is they initiate the sequence, now that they have that reason as to why he wants to go to the moon, they reprogram his brain to having always wanted to be an astronaut. And what they do, I'm getting emotional talking about it, it's so crazy. What they do is they erase his memories of his previous life. River is her name. They erase the memories of his life with River, the life he lived, and replace them with these newer, happier memories where they get to go to the moon together, which you kind of see this whole thing happen, right? And on one hand, you're like, oh, they finally have this happy ending, but it's not real. It's not what he really experienced. And that is heartbreaking because it's like, how do you feel about that? Because they ended up together still in the end, because she was one of the main reasons that he wanted to go to the moon. And like, in his mind, that is what happened. But in the reality, their life, despite being together, was so sad and heartbreaking throughout the entirety of it, because the entire time they were married, River was trying to get Johnny to remember their first meeting. And he never did, because of the accident that he was in. And I don't know if that garbled description made any sense. Maybe this video is more me venting about these times that I cried. I don't know if this is making any sense. But that, I sobbed like a baby. And 2011, I was 14. It wasn't the first time I had ever cried at a video game, but it was definitely one of those times in a video game where it was the most real feeling, I think, experience that I had experienced in a game. Like, the first time I really questioned, like, is it better to live a lie that's a happy lie and forget all of the memories that you had, or is it better to live a life that is a little full of sadness but be your authentic self and really experience those few moments that you did have happy times? Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm probably rambling, but it was so crazy. So I highly recommend, even if you listen to this, if you haven't played To the Moon yet, please play it. It's a wonderful thing to experience. And I can't even tell you about the song that plays during this whole sequence of these new memories going through before Johnny dies, and you just hear the heart monitor just beep. It's, oh my gosh. So anyways, To the Moon is a great experience, and I highly recommend you play it if you haven't. Moving on to one that I'm probably gonna get made fun of for, but definitely impacted me in an equal way. Elite Beat Agents. Now you might be wondering, what in Elite Beat Agents would make you cry? But if you've played Elite Beat Agents, you know exactly what made me cry. The Christmas episode. So in Elite Beat Agents, you go through different stages where you're, dancing through situations trying to make things better. And there is one that preface this, I got this game because my older cousin had this game and I watched her play it, thought it was so cool, thought it was so fun, so I wanted it on my own. But I remember getting to this level and my life was shattered. I was like, I thought I was playing a fun rhythm game. But the Christmas episode, what happens is the Elite Beat Agents are tasked with helping this young girl. So this young girl's father went off right before Christmas one year on a presumably business trip. We don't get a ton of details in these stories. Goes off on a business trip and leaves her a teddy bear. I think it's either leaves her a teddy bear or with the promise of bringing her a teddy bear back for Christmas. He gets in a car accident and dies. Thus leaving her alone for Christmas. And the song that plays while you're trying to dance this little girl through her grief is You're the Inspiration. You're the meaning in my life. You're the inspiration. Every time that song gets me, I'll hear it in like the grocery store, and I'm taken back to Elite Beat Agents during the Christmas episode of this game with this poor little girl who is just trying to figure out life after her dad passes away. And as she processes this grief, you see images of the dad watching over her the entire time, and it just really got me. It really got me. And that's probably one of the earliest instances of me crying at a video game is Elite Beat Agents. Which, I mean, it's pretty heartbreaking, and especially, like the previous levels you were doing are like Skater Boy, and helping like these girls off of an island with Material Girl by Madonna playing in the background. Nope, you're the inspiration, dad's dead, haha. But anyways, for those who said rhythm games can't be an emotional experience, I don't know if there are any people out there like that, but if they are, you're wrong. This game quite literally shattered my life, and I still haven't recovered the amount of tears I shed after drawing a star on my Nintendo DS. It was a lot. It was a lot. This one, again, if you know me and have been around for a while, you know probably isn't a surprise. I could have picked any game from this series to go on this list, but I picked the one that I cried the hardest at, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, probably all I need to say about this one is just Chapter 5, and most people will know what I'm talking about. However, for those who need to be told it again, or for those who haven't played the game but don't care about spoilers, Chapter 5 is one of the most defining moments in the entirety of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Leading up to that chapter, you're really starting to get to know your party of 6 and the relationships that they're building with one another, especially Noah and Mio. Their relationship is, at this point in time, really budding into something beautiful, and this trust that they have between each other, especially knowing that Mio, between all of them, really doesn't have much time left on this planet. It's pretty heartbreaking. It's pretty darn heartbreaking. So you know the end for Mio is coming near. Once we get to Chapter 5, that end is very much in sight, as Noah and the gang are imprisoned with Mio in an entirely separate prison leading up to the day that she is going to die. This moment also comes after a pretty heartbreaking defeat and a lot of lore drop. Not stuff I'm gonna get into here, because again, it's better experienced on your own. But throughout these days of these guys in this prison, you see Noah especially, but the entire party, break down, and you really feel their hopelessness as they march towards the end of Mio's life. It is heartbreaking. It's a lot, because at this point in time, you've come to really love these characters, and especially Noah and Mio. Noah and Mio, in my opinion, are very likable protagonists. So now that you know that something terrible is about to happen to one who is very, overall, pretty innocent, it's almost worse than just having her killed at, like, in the battle that you were just in, because you are just marching towards her death. You know it's happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. It puts the player in this state of hopelessness, just as the characters feel, and I think that is such a genius move, because you really feel the emotional impact when you finally get to that point. And I'm kind of dancing around a lot of stuff because, again, I know I said there was going to be spoilers in this video. There already have been. This is one that if I can try to dance around as much as possible, I'm going to, because, again, experiencing this moment was one of the most insane video game experiences of my life. I was sitting in the other room sobbing at 4 in the morning because that's when I got to this scene. And I couldn't breathe. I was so far gone. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And again, I just think it's such a genius move to really make you as the player feel that exact same way. Like, you feel so hopeless. You feel like the end of the game is literally coming now because you don't know how you're going to proceed past this point. Meanwhile, you're also getting more lore dumped on you throughout this entire time, how the characters of N and M, who are related to Noah and Mio, came to be. And it just weaves the story together in this beautiful, jaw-dropping experience that really, for me, gave me so much determination after this whole part of the game to finish the game, figure everything out, and just really push for it. Like, it was, oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, and I need to stop talking about it in case I do spoil anything else more, but experience this yourself. If you've already experienced it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but, like, if you haven't, and even if you're like, I don't care about spoilers, go experience this yourself. I'm literally death gripping this game right now. Go experience it. It's so good. It's so good. And finally, one of the most impactful games in my life, but I also don't have the case for anymore. I need to rebuy that at some point in time, but one of the biggest games that no matter what happens, no matter how many times I hear the song that plays in the background of this scene, I will sob. And that is Professor Layton and the Diabolical box. Once again, I will have to get the box for the Diabolical box. So the main part of the game is Professor Layton and Luke are trying to figure out the mysteries of the Diabolical box, aka Pandora's box, which they think killed their colleague. However, their journey takes them on the Momentary Express and eventually to the town of Full Sense, where there is rumored to be a vampire. Full Sense, it's wacky. The people there are very weird and mysterious. You begin to uncover the greater story of this town and why it fell into such weird ruin and nobody seems to be aware of it, and Anton, the presumed vampire. You also have this mysterious purple-haired character following you around for a good chunk of the game as well, so you're not really sure what her deal is until the big climax of this game. So after a very epic sword fighting situation with Anton between him and Professor Layton, which is awesome, you find out that the entire town doesn't really exist anymore. And Anton is actually an old man and not a charming blonde vampire. Due to the greed of Anton's father, the miners that he controlled dug way too deep that released a gas upon this town, making people hallucinate, making people sick, making people die. Not a good time. So what ended up happening is Anton, having lived there his whole life, inhaled all this gas, so he felt that no time had passed. Meanwhile, the love of his life had left him mysteriously because she had someone else to think about now. Anton thought that she was just cheating. However, she was actually pregnant. Her name was Sophia. She was actually pregnant and needed to protect her baby from what she knew was going on around her with the gas. And because Anton didn't want to leave, she was like, I have to protect our baby. So obviously the town fell into ruin, became abandoned, and Anton still lived out his days thinking that nothing really had changed. All of these people were hallucinations. This whole town was a hallucination. Now this plot is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. I totally understand it. Yes, the whole, oh, the gas made me crazy kind of situation. Like, I mean, that happens a lot. However, when I was younger playing this game, I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever experienced. But the big kicker for me is that we find out that the Pandora's box was actually a box shared between Anton and Sophia. And once we officially opened it how you're supposed to, unveiled a secret compartment with a final letter from Sophia to Anton, revealing the whole situation about her being pregnant, how she had to go away to take care of her baby, and how she died, how she is dead now. And the purple-haired individual is her granddaughter, Katya. Meaning that Katya, the purple-haired girl that's been following us, was trying to get her grandfather, who is Anton, to see sense. And it feels weird that, like, as I'm explaining it, it's like, it doesn't sound like that emotional of a plot, but at the same time, I can't even really articulate the words that are shared because they're very sweet. It's a very big moment. But I think also the context for me personally is important because I've talked about this before on the channel and other collabs. Professor Layton is a really special series to me because of the relationship it has between me and my grandpa, who passed away a few years ago. And this game I played when he was really, really sick. And it was one of those situations where it made me so happy to see this fictional character reunite with her grandfather. And it was like, he couldn't believe it. It was, it's, again, a moment better experienced for yourself. But for me, it really just really hit home because I knew the time with my grandfather was ending. And that was a really hard thing. I'm getting a little choked up. That was a really hard thing to kind of deal with. So being able to play this game with him, have that special relationship, it really, every time that I've replayed this game and got to that part, I think of my grandpa and I start sobbing. I sobbed initially too because of that, realization, but now it hits in a very different way. There's also this very sweet song that plays in the background and it gets me every time. 100%. I can't hear it even by itself without wanting to cry because it takes me back to that moment of finishing this game for the first time, having that realization that this entire time that his family that he's longed for and was so resentful for has been there looking for him and trying to find him, and now for however much longer he and his granddaughter can be together and learn about each other, and it was a crazy reveal to me. And yeah, I don't know if I'm doing it justice, honestly. So again, if you haven't played Diabolical Box, one of my favorites of the Layton series, Unwound Future is also a great one. That was a really big contender for this list as well because that game also made me sob. But this one was a lot more impactful for me personally, so yeah. Yay! Emotions! But those are 5 games that have made me cry to no end and have left a very huge emotional impact on my life. I'd love to hear games that made you cry. Try to keep spoilers in the comments to a minimum, just in case you have the passerby who's like, I wanted to play that game, blah, blah, blah. But let me know what games made you cry. I'd love to know. I think, kind of knowing what games make ourselves emotional and sharing that it's a cool thing to do, you know? It gives us a little insight into one another, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I think being emotional at video games is a totally normal response because we're impacted by these things in different ways. So I think it's a really cool thing to share, and I'm glad I got to share it with all of you, even though dredging up the Elite Beat Agent's memory was painful. But if you liked this video, you like talking games, you like talking nostalgia, maybe stick around and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and maybe give this video a thumbs up. I'd super appreciate it. But that's gonna do it for me, everybody. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye! Boop!